Hello and welcome to the Most Maligned Horror Podcast. This is a show offering critical analysis and critique of the horror films of the early 2000s. My name is Macaulay Elijah Quinn. I am a filmmaker and film critic, and on today's episode I'll be discussing with you, very briefly, The Prophecy 3, The Ascent. I say that I'm going to be discussing this very briefly. That is because this is a very slight film. There is not a whole heap going on in terms of like plot and themes and things like that. It's a pretty unremarkable film, just sort of on the face of it. Not bad necessarily, but just sort of not astonishing either. There wasn't a whole lot that I sort of latched onto. I've had to watch the film a couple of times actually just to record this episode because I just honestly, when I finish watching it, the whole thing just leaves my head. And that makes it really kind of difficult to talk about. But what I want to do instead is talk a little bit about the disappearance of direct-to-video sequels to films, and in particular, sort of, I suppose, 2010s like film critic brain, 2010s YouTube film critic brain in particular. So what is The Prophecy 3, The Ascent? So the Prophecy series was not one that I was familiar with before starting this show. When I was putting together sort of the lists of films that I would be covering on this series, I consulted a bunch of different sort of places, bunch of different lists on Letterboxd, as well as like on IMDb. And The Prophecy 3 sort of kept popping up, and so I was like, well, let's chuck it in. Saw that Christopher Walken was in it, and so I was like, it's probably it'll be decent. I'll give it a look. Christopher Walken is sort of one of those actors who's been memeified in the past sort of 10, 20 years. He's sort of like Nick Cage in that, like, whenever he's in a film, people have sort of certain expectations of what that film is going to be. There was a big discussion about this just recently on Twitter between some friends of mine. One of them was talking about the experience of watching Pig in the theaters, and talking about how a woman in the row behind him was just laughing at like every line that Nick Cage delivered. And I don't know if you've seen that film or not, but it's not exactly a fucking yuck 'em up. It's just sort of it's kind of like I mean, it's not great. It's just kind of like a bit dry, but yeah, she responded to the film in this way, I guess because it starred Nick Cage, and Nick Cage has a reputation. The films that he's in are expected to be Nick Cage films. And Christopher Walken sort of has like a similar vibe for, I suppose, like the mainstream sort of public, the people that aren't watching his more art house stuff, his work with like Abel Ferrara and stuff like that. Speaking of which, I just sort of recently discovered New Rose Hotel, starring Christopher Walken and Willem Dafoe. Incredible film, really, really just fantastic. I kind of wish that we could talk about that more than this film, but that's neither here nor there. So the Prophecy series is, as best I can tell, I haven't watched any of the other films. I didn't think that it was going to be worth it for me to watch, the first two films so that I could understand this, and I stand by that decision. I was able to piece everything together, I think. From what I could tell, The Prophecy is a series about fallen angels fighting over the fate of humanity. Christopher Walken plays the Archangel Gabriel, and in this film he is going up against the Angel of Genocide, Pyrael, and is along the way sort of helping to mentor a young demigod named Daniel, I think was his name. Let me pull up I'll just read the plot synopsis for you off of Letterboxd. I think it's going to be easier than me trying to recall everything that's going on. The conclusion of the Prophecy trilogy. Once again, Christopher Walken returns as the Archangel Gabriel. As the war in heaven and earth rages on, Pyriel, the angel of genocide, rises to power, intending to destroy all of mankind. The only one who stands in his way is Daniel, spelled Danyal, who was born of an angel and a woman. So that's, that covers it, basically. Released in March of 2000, directed by Patrick Lussier, I think is how you pronounce his name, who will be coming across a bunch of his films on this show. He was probably most famous for directing Dracula 2000, as well as its two sort of sequels. He also directed the My Bloody Valentine remake from 2009. So we're gonna be returning to this guy's work. As I said at the opening, The Prophecy 3 is somewhat unremarkable. It's not a bad film. It's the way I would describe it is competent. It's well directed. It's well shot. It looks pretty good. Like there's some great set pieces in this film. There's some really good like action sequences. The climax in particular is like a sort of wire fu fight between Daniel and Pyriel, where they're sort of going at it in this like limbo space. And that's a cool sequence, and it's like it looks good, but it just doesn't stick. I didn't find anything really to latch onto. Thematically, there's just not a lot going on outside of just sort of the usual, why does God allow us to suffer stuff that tends to come across in a lot of these religious, Christianity-based genre films from this time period. And from before now as well. Basically, any genre film based in religion tends to tackle the same question of, well, why does God allow us to suffer? And, the free will of man and how we bring about our own demise and things like that. We're going to see this theme a lot as well on this show. Looking ahead at sort of what I'm going to be covering over the next few years. Even in the next couple of weeks, I think there's one or two films that sort of cover the same ground. It's big because... So I'm from New Zealand. I've spoken about this a couple of times on the show, but in New Zealand, religion isn't such a big thing. Definitely not in the way that it is in the US. Like, I did not grow up going to church. None of my friends did. In general, religion just isn't so much of our everyday lives here in New Zealand, and so it certainly wasn't a part of my life. And so as a result, I just have never found genre films that sort of are interrogating Christian values and things like that. I've never found them particularly compelling. That being said, even if you were somebody for whom religion was a big part of your life, I do wonder how you would respond to a film like this, because, like I said, this is kind of just what films do when they genre films in particular, when they talk about religion, they're usually just asking the same questions again and again and again. And so I wonder, would you just be tired of it at this point? Would you just be over, thinking about and responding to the same questions every time that you watch one of these films? It must be extremely, tiresome, I would have thought. This is me speculating about an entire group of people here, and whole cultures that are not my own. So I would love to be corrected on this. I would love to hear from somebody for whom religion was a big part of your life, and if you're still currently religious, and how you respond to these films that tackle religion in this way. I'd be very curious to hear from you. But either way, it didn't do anything for me. It didn't grab me. It left me just feeling sort of, it just rolled off my back. And so instead, what I sort of ended up thinking about more so than the film itself was the existence of, or the disappearance of, rather, direct-to-video sequels to films. I've stated before on this show, I grew up, I was born in 1996. I was a child during the 2000s, and I was a teenager in the 2010s. And so a lot of my taste in art started to develop really when I was in high school. And I got into thinking about art and thinking about films in particular through YouTube. I don't think that this is an unusual experience for people my age. I think that a lot of people who are now sort of critics and things like that, I think that a lot of them would have started out by sort of admiring the critical work that was being done sort of on the internet at this time, like while they were teenagers. And while a huge amount of it doesn't hold up, and so much of it was just middle-aged men getting furious at a movie intended for 10-year-olds, there was still there was a lot of critical discourse that I interacted with, and because I was a teenager, I didn't have any thoughts of my own, and so what I would do instead was I would just parrot back what these online critics were saying. And one of the big critical sort of discourses that was going around in the 2010s was this sort of like moral hand-wringing about there is no new art being produced. There are no original stories in movies these days. It's all just sequels and remakes. I heard this all the time. I heard this like daily for years when I was a teenager. And it was something that I would say to others as well when like family members would talk to me about films. They knew that this was something that I was interested in, so they would try to engage with me and go like, "Oh, have you seen blah blah blah?" And I would always I would come back with any time that it was a sequel or a remake, I would go, yeah, but it's like, oh, it's such a shame that they don't make like original stories anymore, that they don't tell like any new stories in movies, and it's all just sequels and remakes. That's all that gets produced these days. And because I was a teenager, nobody pushed back. Nobody was just like, well, actually, you're an idiot. And so I carried on believing this for years. And what I want to say is that there is a grain of truth to that. Like, yes, film companies are producing a lot of sequels, a lot of remakes, a lot of like, they're trying to develop franchises. That's sort of like the big thing nowadays, is that if they're not making direct sequels. They're not doing, The Mummy 2, but instead they're trying to do The Wolfman and The Invisible Man. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a dark universe. And so if they're like, yes, production companies, they are making a lot of sequels, a lot of remakes. They were doing this in the 2010s, but they were also doing this in the 2000s, in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 70s. Basically, since cinema began, people have been trying to cash in on the success of previous films. This is not unique to the present day. There is not some moral failing in Hollywood that is causing these production companies to only be making this type of film. As always, it boils down to money. It boils down to these companies are not in the business of making art. They are in the business of making money. And so they will see a film's success and they will immediately try to greenlight a sequel. That's just how it's always been. And I think what people were seeing in the 2010s, but they weren't, they certainly weren't engaging with it in the right ways. They didn't have the language for it. What they were seeing in the 2010s was they were seeing studios struggling with the rising cost of producing films. The cost of making a movie nowadays is higher than it's ever been, and it was getting up there in the 2010s. Before that, it wasn't cheap by any means, don't get me wrong, but as the price of making a film increased and as streaming services and online services started to systematically kill off the physical media marketplace, it became less and less profitable for these studios to be making direct-to-video sequels. All throughout the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, you were getting lots and lots and lots of sequels to films. Beloved movies. All of the, horror films, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, the Leprechaun films. We're going to be talking about Leprechaun in the Hood next week. And, I mean, that's a direct-to-video sequel. It's, I think, the fourth, maybe the fifth film in that series. And it's the fucking Leprechaun. Like, who likes the Leprechaun? People know about the Leprechaun, but I don't think I've met anyone who's like ride or die for fucking Leprechaun, But these films, because they had these recognizable names, they got sequels. Because they had some amount of success, they were given sequels. But because they were being delivered physically, because they were being put direct into stores instead of delivered, direct to your TV, people responded to them in a different way. They expected these films to be of a lower quality. And so there just wasn't so much hand-wringing about it. There wasn't so much of the film industry is on its fucking ass, people just were like, well, yeah, that's just kind of, they make the big money in theaters. These production companies, they make their money in theaters, and then in DVD sales and things like that, that's where they just sort of put the things that are of lesser quality. As it became more expensive to make a movie, these studios, they couldn't go that traditional distribution method anymore. They couldn't just put a DVD out and make their money that way because, like I said, the streaming market was killing off the physical media market. And so instead, these films, they had to be put in theaters. What's been really interesting is that in the past sort of couple of years, we've sort of started to see streaming services reinvent this like direct to streaming model now, where films are being made, they're going out in theaters, and then the sequel is being delivered direct to streaming, because these companies have realized that actually physical media was like a big chunk of our profits, and we're not making the same money that we used to, and so they are scrambling now to try and find ways to bring back all of these different models that they had done away with in the previous sort of decade. We're seeing this a lot with like TV. A lot of the streaming services nowadays, they're offering like, here is a free version, or here is like a lower quality version of like the app that has advertising, because guess what? Advertising was like, selling advertising space was how a lot of these companies made money. And so when you create a streaming service that doesn't have ads on it, you're losing money. And these companies, they want to make money. That's all that they're here to do. They are not your friends. They are not here to fucking just give you all of these films, all of this, like, you know, access to art out of the goodness of their heart. They are here to extract every last fucking dollar that they can from their audience. And so, yeah, you're seeing these companies trying, like, just desperately, just grasping in the dark, trying to recapture the fucking, like, cable TV, like, model that they've spent the past, like, decade and a half saying, that's the old shit, like, nobody wants this anymore. That's like the shitty way to watch TV, where, you know, streaming, that's the future, baby. It's so fucking stupid. It's just the dumbest people on earth run these fucking companies, and they are just really showing their whole ass. So yeah, so yes, The Prophecy 3 was one of these direct video sequels. It would have just been, you know, put out. It would have just shown up on shelves in like video rental shops and things like that. Speaking of which, sort of related, this earlier this week, I went to the cinema with some friends of mine, and one of the local theaters here in Christchurch, one of the best ones that we've got. It is sort of part theater, part video rental shop, and they are still getting in new releases. They get as well a lot of like special editions of films, Criterion Collection stuff, Arrow Video. But one of my friends, he had never been there before, never been inside the shop, knew that it existed, but had never been in. And man, the experience of being in a video rental shop and being surrounded by physical media that you can like touch and interact with, and you can like see something on the shelf and pick it up and like read about it. It's unmatched. It's still the best way to shop, just hands down. It's the best way to find stuff. And as well, the staff there, they all just love movies. They're all like really like on the ball, and so you can just ask about like anything and they will be able to help. They'll be able to like recommend you stuff. I was hunting for Inland Empire. I wanted to check out the Criterion edition of that if they had a copy, and I couldn't find it on the shelf in the spot that I thought it would be, and so I sort of asked the guy, and we got to talking, and we had like a whole like 15-minute conversation where he was like, "Oh well, if you're interested in like mini DV like filmmaking and like shot on video stuff, then like, have you checked out this? Have you heard about this film? Have you heard about this book? And all of these things. And that was like amazing. I was so happy to just like be in that space. It's a feeling that just streaming services just cannot capture. It's a feeling that the algorithm just can't replicate. Very recently, I think it was 5 days ago now at time of recording, my video essay, Fuck Me, received a shout out on Sean McTiernan's Patreon podcast, Perfect Taste Forever. Sean McTiernan is a Irish media critic who has done a load of different podcasts, Live at the Death Factory, Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, All Units, Hundreds of Dead Bodies, Hundreds of Pixelated Dead Bodies. At the moment, he's doing a series called SF Ultra, which is reading 100 science fiction books in the hope of brainwashing himself into liking the science fiction genre. If you're listening to my show, in all likelihood, it is because of Sean. It is because he recommended that you come and check out my work, which I really appreciate. And if you did find me that way, thank you so much. But on this most recent show, when he recommended people fuck me, Sean was talking about the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, and the ways that small creators interact with it, and the ways that you as sort of as an audience member should interact with YouTube in a way that will sort of help to dismiss the work of the algorithm, because the algorithm is designed in such a way that it cannot see nuance. It cannot pick up on the nuance of a work. So if you watch a bunch of video essays about horror films, it is only going to see, okay, this is a video essay, it is this long, it is about horror films. And so it is going to start recommending you things that it believes are in the same wheelhouse, but are in fact very, very different. So, for instance, for myself, this is something that I do. I watch a lot of these video essays. I watch a lot of people, talking about horror films, and as a result, I am recommended a lot of videos by a channel called Wendigoon. Wendigoon is most famous for their video, The Disturbing Movie Iceberg. They also do like some true crime stuff where they sort of speculate on actual murders that really happened, and the people involved are, sort of, their family members are still alive and still, still kicking. But yeah, his videos on Disturbing Movie Iceberg and like Disturbing Video Game Iceberg and things like that, they got really, really popular over the course of this year. And they're really bad. They're not very well researched. They're not very well thought through. As well, Wendigoon themselves is a youth pastor, and so there is like certain content that they just will not interact with. So it's very funny to see how that sort of influences where they sort of like put certain films on the list. It's kind of remarkable because it's like there is like actual snuff videos on there alongside like the guinea pig films and like August Underground and things like that. And it's like videos of like people being actually murdered are not like it's a different thing. If you're comparing videos of like actual death and like actual death of like children in particular, is one of the videos that he has put on this list. Actual child murder, and you're comparing it to the contents of like Mermaid in a Manhole, or it's what are you doing? Like that's absurd just on the face of it. That is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, these videos are recommended to me all the time because the algorithm recognizes that like, oh well, this is about horror films, so you'll like this, right? Like this is what you're into. And it is unable to see sort of the nuance of like it's unable to recognize the work that goes into the videos that like really move me, and that I am, given a thumbs up and subscribing to the channels and things like that. Like the other video that was shouted out by Sean was Unfeatured Films 2-hour sort of epic discussing various found footage horror films. Really excellent video, really like thoughtfully produced, like well researched, well considered. The films discussed in it as well are like all very interesting to think about and talk about. And so like a video like that that I really actually loved, it's so much better than a Wendigoon video, and yet to the algorithm they are the same thing. And so what was sort of being recommended, there was some discussion happening in the comment section. What I sort of put forward was that the best way to find art these days, the best way to find things to watch and to listen to and to read and things like that, is to surround yourself with people whose opinions you can understand, even if you don't always agree with what the person is saying. If you can understand from the way that they talk about a work, if you can sort of deduce, okay, this is something that is worth my time, or this is something that I should just skip, that is the best way to find things. On YouTube, there is a horror critic, Ryan Hollinger, who I follow his channel, even though I typically don't. I typically the conclusions that he draws about the films that he covers are not typically. I tend to disagree with them pretty sort of extensively on what they find good in a film. But I follow them because I can tell if they recommend a movie, if they talk about it and say, yeah, this is like really excellent, this is like one of the best films that I've seen, I can go, okay, I can skip this. I cannot watch this film and not feel bad about it. And yeah, that's the way that I find things nowadays. There's obviously a lot of people that I follow because I do agree with them, and because the things that they say about art are well considered and well written and things like that. But that's the best way to find art, I think, is to surround yourself by people who put thought into what they watch and read and interact with. I had some broader point that I was going to make. I was going to tie this back into the prophecy films in some way, and into the discussion of like what has happened to sequels, but for the life of me, I cannot remember what that was going to be. This is the joy of not taking notes before I sit down to record, is that now I am the one showing my whole ass. I am the one fumbling in the dark trying to fucking find a point. I might just leave it there. I might I think I'll just The Prophecy 3, it's not for me. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you very much to Janka Glonis for the use of their track Slime Dripping Down the Walls off of the album Fun Time Party Gal. A link to that album and to their Bandcamp can be found in the episode description. If you want to hear more from me, you can do that on Twitter at _Tokyo_dirty_. You can also follow the show at Most Maligned. If you have any sort of longer form questions or comments, feel free to email those to mostmaligned@gmail.com. Thanks once again to Sean McTiernan for the shout out. Thank you again if you are listening based on that shout out. Let me know. Next week on the show, we're going to be talking about Leprechaun in the Hood, another direct-to-DVD sequel. So perhaps there I'll be able to find the point that I was trying to make at the end of this episode, and I can cleverly weave that into my discussion of Leprechaun in the Hood. Until then, though, this has been the Most Maligned Horror Podcast.